Hi guys, welcome to the Reach and Inspire podcast. This is Urenna, your host. I'm really excited about today's episode, which is an interview I did with a really good friend of mine, Chika Anajemba. Chika works in the financial services industry, but is also a writer, a public speaker, and a singer, amongst other things. In this episode, we delve into what it means to leave your comfort zone, and Chika shares some thoughts from her experience. I think you'd really enjoy listening to this episode and also hopefully learn a thing or two from the wisdom that Chika has to share. I pray that you're encouraged and also challenged by it. Enjoy! Hi guys, welcome to the Reach and Inspire podcast. I'm Urenna, your host. Today, we're going to be doing a part 2 of episode 5, which was why you need to leave your comfort zone. I have with me a very special guest, a really good friend of mine. Her name's Chika Anajemba. Now, I've known Chika for several years, actually since primary school, so we go way back. But today I'll be talking to Chika about leaving your comfort zone, and she'll be sharing what that looks like for her at the moment, and especially in the current situation we find ourselves in. So let's get right to it. Welcome, Chika.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be on here. Thanks for asking me on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this chat with you. We've been talking about doing something like this together for some time. So I'm quite proud of both of us for actually, getting ourselves together and doing this. So do you want to just introduce yourself to the listeners? Just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So as Uri said, I'm Chika Anajemba. We have known each other for a very long time. What do I say? I'm trying to think about what to
Like, how did
introduce.
we meet?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we went to primary school together, as she said. Actually, Uri, I think we actually go all the way back to pre-nursery, like that. When we were like 3 years old or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously coming into the UK because I'm originally from Nigeria, and I've been in the UK now for the last 12 years. So Uri and I connected back when I came into the UK. I currently work in the financial services industry. I've been working in the financial services industry now for over 10 years. What else should I say about me? I'm a twin. Random fact. And my twin and I are the last of 6 siblings. So there's 6 of us. We're the last. I'm actually the very last of the last. So my twin is 5 minutes older than me. What else? I love to sing. I love to travel. And yeah, I'm really excited to be on this podcast. And, I hope that I can share a few nuggets that hopefully will help the listeners on their journey as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so we've had some conversations recently about stepping out of your comfort zone. So what would you say your comfort zone looks like? What does that look like for you?
Coffee and cake.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess on a serious note, comfort zone looks like a lot of things for me, actually. Comfort zone is being at home on a rainy day, curled up on my sofa, watching a nice movie and a cup of tea. Comfort zone is sticking with what's familiar, whether that's at work. So working on projects or areas that I'm already quite conversant with, and I guess I could say would already have the expertise in. Comfort zone would be sticking with old friends, not really, looking to make new friends. So comfort zone, it means many things for me, but I think probably the biggest area that I would say in terms of comfort zone would be in my career. And that's trying to like almost sort of mold my career into an area that is familiar to me, because then I feel like I can operate from a place of expertise and not have to worry about whether I'm performing well or not.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Definitely. So what would you say has held you back in the past, whether in terms of your career or something else, from actually stepping out? So like you mentioned with your career, is it that if you went into a different field, you would have to start from scratch, or you wouldn't feel as confident? What do you think has held you back from perhaps stepping out of your comfort zone?
Yeah. So I think if I think about like the opportunities that I've had in my career, I would say taking on new responsibility for sure. The thought or the feeling or the weight of responsibility that I feel when, if I'm asked to do something that I'm unfamiliar with, sometimes I feel like that weight is, it almost feels like it's too much to bear. Like, oh my God, what if I screw this
Mm,
up? If I take this on, sometimes I think that in some ways has held back, like putting myself out there and saying, you know what, I'd like to do this project because, I think it would be a great opportunity for me. I think,
mm,
if I can speak frankly, like I think particularly for us females, we tend to have a tendency to not take on any sort of roles or responsibilities that we don't feel we are equipped for, or we already have the knowledge, the necessary knowledge to. And I see this a lot when it comes to career choices, or like even going for interviews. You look at a job spec and immediately you're running your skills against that job spec, and if it feels like your skills don't match up to the job spec, then you automatically rule yourself out and say, well, I don't have the required skills. And I know that there have been a lot of studies that have been done, and like men will absolutely go for the interview. They will be like, yes, I can 100% like do this. And even if they only have
yeah.
like 20% of the required skills. So I think that's
Mm,
definitely one area for me, like that uncertainty about whether I can actually do it or not has held me back in
mm.
some ways. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can completely relate to that that exact thing where, if I don't fit the job description like almost 100%, then I
Yeah.
feel like, oh, that's not the job for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so okay, so that's interesting, career wise. How about in terms of I guess, how would I phrase it? Ministry. I don't know if ministry is the right word.
Yeah.
And the reason that I say this is because obviously recently, just in our private conversations and things, you've been talking about um basically sharing
Yeah.
what's on your heart a lot more, for example, on social media, as a Christian. And so, what was the push, or what led you to decide to intentionally um, step out of your comfort zone in that area?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a very good one and a very good question. So, as you rightly mentioned, I have had a lot on my heart that I felt like the Lord had essentially given to me, and it wasn't meant for me to just keep to myself. Like I always felt like it was meant for me to share these things that were on my heart. But I think over the years as well, there's been a lot of fear about actually sharing those things because, um, to some extent, some of it feels like you're exposing yourself there, and it requires vulnerability essentially. And that's
Yeah.
something that, for me personally, I know I've struggled with over the years. It's a word that I'm now more comfortable with. But I think for most of us, when we hear the term vulnerability or being vulnerable, it's like, oh, please, what is that? It almost, I think there's almost this association of the word vulnerable with weakness. And I think for
Yeah.
me, that was the biggest thing. It was that, what will people think, like if I, share some of the stuff out, like that I want to share, and whether that's about my own life personally or just broader topics and issues, and how would that be received. And also, I think just part of it is not just only the fear. I think part of it is just also my concerns about cybersecurity. I mean, I studied computer science, so don't blame it on me. Blame it on computer science, and
Yeah.
like the dangers of the internet and all of that, and knowing that whatever you put out there essentially is there for life. So there were all of these thoughts raging in my head that kind of kept me back. But more recently, like actually during this whole coronavirus season that we all find ourselves in, I tragically lost a friend very unexpectedly. And that whole week, that entire week that I heard of her passing was just it was a week of grieving. And it was, a new level of grieving I'd never experienced before. And I don't really know what prompted it, but I just felt like I needed to put something out there. And so I picked up my phone one day and I just literally started talking, and I shared about, losing my friend and the grief, but I also shared about hope. Because in this season of coronavirus, and even before my friend passed away, sadly, I I had received a word from the Lord about the cluster, and the term cluster has been used a lot in during this era of cluster of
Yeah.
the virus or hotspots popping up in new places. But I really felt like the Lord
Yeah.
was saying that He was releasing a new cluster of wine, and that represented healing and new things coming up. So for me, it
Yeah.
was very important to share that, because there's been a lot of negative information out there that has also created anxiety in the minds of people. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I felt like it was really important for me to share that. So I guess really in some ways, like losing my friend and just also being reminded again of the brevity of life prompted me
Yeah.
out of that place of comfort into, it's either now or never.
Yeah. Yeah, really sorry about, about the loss of your friend. Do you think, and I think for a lot of people, actually, this coronavirus situation, and even for some people that maybe have lost close ones, it's almost like, I know that as Christians, we're aware of death, and, we don't have to fear death. But when you lose someone close to you, do you think that that was almost like a reminder, for example, that, life is short, and, we're not, guaranteed tomorrow or the future. And if I've got all this stuff, on the inside of me, that God has, given me to share, there is no better time
Mm.
really than now to share it. Do you think there was a bit of that going on as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always been conscious of the fact that tomorrow is not promised for anyone, and I think more recently,
Yeah.
over the last, I would say, 2 3 years, um, I've tried to live life more intentionally, knowing,
Yeah.
and when I say that, I mean, living from a place of whatever it is that I'm doing, I want to do it to my absolute best. I want to make an impact. And I know people, throw that word out loosely, and sometimes, it's like, oh, I want to make a difference. But I think
Yeah.
personally, in my own life, I've been through a number of challenges that have kind of brought me to that place of almost like, um, like when you're at your lowest point and there's really no other place to go, right? You're either going to
Yeah.
go 6 feet under, or you're going to have a 360-degree turnaround and make every day
Mm.
count. And I've kind of tried to live from that place where, like as much as possible, I want to make every day count. And so, yes, losing a friend very close to me and someone who was so full of life and energy and had so much potential kind of
Mm.
brings home that fact again that our days are short. It says,
Yeah.
there's a scripture that says that teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And gaining a heart of
Yeah.
wisdom means that, wisdom is something that is applied. Wisdom is not just knowledge. It's not just something that you know, but you don't use. When you get wisdom, it is so that you can apply it to different situations or scenarios that you find yourself in. And so for me, that definitely brought home that fact again that we need to live each day from a place of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's great. I love what you said there about, about making impact, about, making a difference, even though, like you said, yes, everyone says it, but as Christians, it's so important that we live, our lives intentionally. Um, so you mentioned about the
Yeah.
clusters. I know that obviously you've shared a couple of or a few Instagram videos now about, what God has been teaching you. And can you share anything else that you've been learning or something else that God has been teaching you, especially in this season, like in the past month or so?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So more recently as well, I felt like the Lord was speaking to me about, again, it's actually all around time and the value of time and investing your time wisely. And so more recently,
Mm.
I was taken back again to the parable of the mina, where 10 servants were given a mina each, which was an ancient form of currency, and they were all supposed to trade with that and bring a report back to their master. And so a bunch of them went and traded with the money, and a few others decided that they were not going to. And for the ones who were faithful, they got a reward for their faithfulness, and for the ones who were unfaithful, unfortunately, it was a sad end for them. And what was interesting about that parable was that it was at the time where the disciples were thought that the kingdom of God was going to arrive immediately, because Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. So we know that he was on his way to Jerusalem about to be crucified. And so historically, the children of Israel had believed that the Messiah was a king that would come riding in with an army into Jerusalem to um, deliver them from the Roman Empire, because at the time they were under the rule and oppression of the Roman Empire. But what was interesting was that Jesus then tells them this parable. And I think that Jesus was trying to tell them, like, it's not so much for you to concern yourself about when the master will come back. What is more crucial and important is about what you are doing in the time that you have between the coming of the master. And so, again, in
Yeah.
this season of coronavirus, where a lot of people's attention, rightly or wrongly, is going to various things, like various things, and all sorts of conspiracy theories, and like even predictions, even from believers saying that this is the end of the world, or
Yeah.
rapture or
Yeah.
something. Like, I think really our eyes should not be focused on those things. Our eyes should be focused on, are we making the most valuable use of our time before the master returns, before the king returns? Because when the king returns, we know that we will all have to give an account of how we have spent what he has given to us, how we have spent our time, how we have spent the gifts and the talents that he has given to us. The faithful
Yeah.
servant, the first faithful servant, had came back with a 1,000% return on investment. He was given one minor and he came back with 10 minors. And I mean, that is
Yeah.
incredible. And again, that shows you the value and the potential that we have as believers who have been given gifts and talents to use it for the kingdom of God, to advance the kingdom of God, that we can actually
Mm.
we can yield 1,000% return on the things that God has given to us, if we will apply
Yeah.
ourselves to those things. So that's one of the things that
Yeah.
the Lord has been speaking to me about in this season. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's amazing. And I love how you explained it as well. And I think it's so, I mean, obviously it's God is speaking to you in this season, but it's so timely as well. I mean, this is how we should live our lives regardless. But I feel like in this season it's just, so relevant. Like you said, sometimes we can be so focused on trying to understand the times and understand, okay, what does this mean? And, does this mean the world is ending and all of that? But in a way, as Christians, we don't have to worry
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely.
It doesn't matter if the world is ending, that's
Yeah.
fine. We're safe,
Yeah.
so to speak. Um, so yeah, I think that's a really really valid, point for all of us to be aware of, that God has placed so much within us, and we just need to be focused on continuing the work, basically doing whatever He's placed us here on earth to do. So, okay, so my next question for you is, we've probably kind of answered it anyway. I was going to ask you why you think it's important to step out of your comfort zone. And secondly, why now? Like, why do you think, for you, obviously, like you said, you've been trying to live your life intentionally anyway. But why do you think that it's even more important now?
So stepping out of our comfort zone, let's face it, is never easy. The minute that you decide to take on any kind of new venture or something that requires you to put yourself out there, what you're ultimately doing is putting yourself out to be judged. And not everyone is going to like what you have to say or do. Not everyone is going to appreciate what you like or do. But I think what we have to learn and what we have to realize is that we don't need everybody to like what we have to say or do. Actually, all you need is one person. And if what you have to say or what you do changes one person's life, then it's even worth it. And that's what I realized. I realized, the value and the power of the one. Because that one person that, whose life you can change or have an impact on can then go on to change other people's life, and it might be more lives, and it might be more than one person's life that they change. They might change like 10,000 or 5,000 or 500. And so you realize that ultimately it's not about the number that you have, but it's a multiplying effect. It's a and so that benefit that other people have, it's still an end result of the fact that you were faithful with what it is that you were required to do. And I think ultimately as well, like, I don't think any of us, were born with, and we decided from day one, like, what, I'm just going to live an average life, just do the absolute bare minimum, get through life. I mean, why? Like, we were created to do great things. Like, I always say it that I have no desire to live a mediocre life, so I realize it's easy to talk that talk, but to walk the walk means you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone if you want to live a life that is beyond, average and mediocre. I want to be careful about what I'm saying. I'm not saying that if you choose that you just want to get through, what we call the normal, the ordinary life, that there's anything wrong with that. But I also believe that as believers, we come from the Creator who created the heavens and the earth. And when you look and you see the beauty and the wonder of His creation, and you realize that that same Spirit with which He created the world lives on the inside of you, then that in itself tells you the greatness and the potential that is on the inside of you. And why wouldn't you then want to tap into that? Why wouldn't you want to then see what that could look like if you actually put yourself, out there, and if you step out of your comfort zone? For me, that is one of the driving forces. That's one of the things that drives me, because I know that the Spirit of God is in me, and I know that there is greatness in me as a result of that. And I know that I've been given a responsibility. And what's interesting is that in that parable as well, He tells the servant, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And I want to hear that. I want to hear my master say, "Well done, good and faithful servant," because I was diligent and responsible with what it was that He gave to me. And I think also what was very powerful in that parable is that because He was faithful, He was given even more. And so it says, to whom much is given, more is required. And for the one who did not have, even what he had was taken from him. I don't want what has been given to me to be taken away from me because I wasn't a good steward of it. Yeah.
Wow, gosh, you packed so much.
Hopefully I answered the question.
No, I think you did, but even if you didn't, I feel like there was so many points where I wanted to interrupt you and say something, but I was like, no, let me just let her, she's in the flow, let me let her keep going. No, it's fine. I think there's so many things, just a couple of points that I wanted to pick up on. Like you said, sometimes you worry about, you know, people liking what we have to say. But then the thought came to me that actually Jesus is a classic example. A lot of people didn't like what Jesus had to say, so much so that they killed him, right?
Exactly.
So why should we expect any difference? Even the Bible tells us that, if the world hates me, of course the world will hate you. So it's like something we should expect. But then the other point was what you said about even if it's one person. Now, I don't know if you know this story, but like Billy Graham is a classic example. So Billy Graham, how he became a Christian was a friend that took him to this crusade, and I can't even remember the name of this friend. And they say all the time, no one knows that guy's name. All he did was that he brought one person to a crusade, and now, Billy Graham, obviously he's died now, but he led millions and millions of people to Christ. But it was one person that spoke to him and brought him to a church. So we don't know the impact that we could have, with just, one person, if we're faithful. So I think that's such a valid point, because sometimes, and in the world we live in now, we can get so caught up in things like followers and how many people have liked my video or my comment or my, or whatever I've put out on there. But sometimes it could just be one person that looked at that and it convicted them, that could go on to change the world. So I think, that's a really valid point to, to bring up. There's so many other things, but I'll leave those for now, because I want to go on to a couple of other questions before we round up. So if we go back to, stepping out of your comfort zone, would you say, because you said at the beginning, one of the things is fear, and I think this is what it is for a lot of people. And in the previous episode, when I talked about stepping out of your comfort zone, fear is a big thing. We're always worried about how we would come across to others, what people think about us, whether people would like what we are saying or what we're doing, whether if you're going to write a book, is anyone actually going to buy my book or read my book? Exactly. So I'm sure there's lots more to come from you, but would you say it's as scary as you imagined? So far, with the things that you've done now that maybe you didn't feel comfortable doing last year, would you say it's as scary as you imagined?
No, it's not. And I think that's the real like crux of the issue, isn't it? Like, fear is always a lot more amplified in our minds than it is in reality. And the other thing is that we tend to live from hindsight, and not necessarily foresight. So at the time, there were many things. There are many things that I've done. I've quit a job before without having another job lined up. And I can tell you that it took me probably at least a year to muster up that courage to quit that job. And there was a lot of fear. And when I finally did it, it was actually very empowering. I mean, like, and that's the thing. Like, we will never know unless we actually try. But as long as you refuse to try, all that remains is a thought or an idea or fear, in your mind. But until you try, you just don't know the possibilities. The possibilities are endless. And there's something very useful that I learned that has really helped me in my life. And that is that for every decision that you have to make, or for every situation that you find yourself in, there's always a 50% chance that it could go well, but there's also a 50% chance that it could go wrong. What tends to happen is that most of us probably magnify the chances of it going wrong to like 80% or even 90, and then the possibility that it might go right 10%. But that's actually not true, and there's usually no basis for that fear to be that magnified if you think about it. So when you look at things from the perspective of it could go 50-50 either way, then you know what? I say that 50% chance that it could go right is worth trying. And
Yeah.
so absolutely that, like, that's how I sort of approach things now. I mean, there are still, lots of things that I would like to do and I'm interested in doing. And actually it's funny you mentioned writing a book, because that's definitely one I want to do. And when I think of them,
Mm.
they're still frightening, they're scary, but at the same time as well, I
Yeah.
always have this thing at the back of my mind, like, I've got to at least try, even if I fail. I can
Yeah.
always rest in the knowledge that I tried and that I gave it my all. But if I don't ever try,
Mm.
then I've already failed. That's the truth. So what I'm afraid of, I've already
Yeah.
made a reality by not trying. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's spot on. I mean, one of the things I said in the last episode as well was, I think I heard someone say it's better to say at the end of your life or wherever, not even just at the end of your life, to say at least
mhm,
I tried than what if I had
yeah,
tried. No one wants to, look back on their lives and say, oh,
yeah,
what if I did, X, Y, Z. Um, just one thing, just touching on one thing you said as well about, possibilities
mhm,
are endless. I remember I heard someone say this, I think it was in a sermon at church or something, saying, you can look at an apple, for example, you know how many seeds
yeah.
are in an apple, but no one knows how many apples are
Hmm.
in a seed.
Mm,
No one knows how many apple can come out of a seed. And that really struck me. I thought that's so true. Like you can look at a seed and just think it's just
hmm.
one tiny, small seed, but that could lead to an orchard of apples and so many
Yeah,
apple trees and or even if it's one apple tree, like lots and lots of fruits that then obviously yield
yeah.
their own seeds as well.
That's a very good
So I
analogy.
think if we
Yeah,
saw our yeah, if we saw our, gifts or talent or whatever. And I think the other thing is a lot of people think, oh, I'm not as talented as this person, or I'm not as gifted as this person. But like you said, we're all God's, creatures. Like He made all of us. So we've all come out of the creator God. Of course, we're talented. Of course, we're gifted. Yes, we're all different, and our talents and gifts are different, but God has definitely placed something in each and every one of us. And we just need to, find out
yeah,
what that thing is so that we can start using it to, better mankind, I guess, and to
yeah.
bring glory
And I
to
think
Him.
also, yeah, sorry, if I may
Um,
just add, I think also, like, I think
yeah,
sometimes I think sometimes actually part of the problem is that, people, we always think that this thing that we have to do has to be this grandiose idea that is going to change the entire
yeah,
world.
yeah.
And that's
Change the
actually
world.
not
Yeah,
true. And I think
yeah,
that's actually one of the biggest
mm,
obstacles to many people stepping out of their comfort zones to do something. Like, it,
yeah,
it could be the
absolutely.
simplest thing, to be honest. And I mean, I can't think of any, like, good enough example now, but I think the first thing that we have to get out of our mindset is this idea that it has to be this grandiose idea that changes the world, because it doesn't have
Mm,
to be. Again, it comes back to the power of the one, like, if you
yeah,
change, and you can do it. You know what, I'm just going to change this one person today and this one person tomorrow, and before you know
yeah,
what's happening, it's a compounding effect. I mean, it's the same principle in finances, right? Like, when you invest, even if the percentage or the return on that you're getting on that investment is little, let's say it's 1 or 2%, but there's a compounding effect, because each time the interest that you've gained on your initial investment plus the original capital put together yields you a bigger result. And so it's the
yeah,
same thing as well, that we can take whatever that little thing is, that idea that has been sown in our minds, and we can invest in it, and work on it. And maybe it's going to change just one person's life, but do that over and over and over again, and you start to see that actually this is actually changing more people's lives than I realized. And this is not
yeah,
as it's not as small and as insignificant as I'm looking at it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to round off soon. So you mentioned before that obviously you want to write a book, which is I think is really exciting. I know you're a great writer. In fact, Chika has written some articles for the magazine. So please check it out at the magazine website, www.reachandinspiremagazine.com. So I'm assuming obviously this is something that you're hoping to continue to do in the future. So I mean, with your
Yeah.
writing.
Yeah, that absolutely. Yeah, like always happy to write for Reach and Inspire. And yeah, like I think these are all still there's a bunch of things that I'm thinking about that I would like to do, but I absolutely it's definitely going to be part of my future endeavors by God's grace.
Yeah, but you write, you share where people can find you, but you don't just
Oh
write,
yes,
obviously, not just for Reach and Inspire. You actually have your own
yes, I have my own
blog as
blog.
well.
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the book. What more can we I keep putting out the book there because I believe, you speak it and so you can listen to this
Feel like putting.
podcast and know that okay, I said this thing, lots of people have heard it. I need to make sure it happens. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so what more can we expect from you? What do you think? Obviously, as much as you know, or as much as it's in your power, what does the future hold? And
Yeah.
if you can just tell us, where we can find you on social media.
Yeah, and definitely. So I'm actually working on something that the Lord kind of gave to me a few years ago, and it's taking its time. I don't really want to go into too much details, but
Mm-hmm.
it essentially will involve creating a startup company,
Mm-hmm.
and part of what it will be doing is providing services. So it's a social enterprise that will provide a service to people in need. Um, so that's definitely something that I'm working on. To be honest, like that is probably till date the biggest and scariest venture that I will
Yeah.
be undertaking. But again, it comes back to that thing of I have to try, right? But I don't
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
try. Like I want it to be a success because, as believers, we are already a success in Christ, and so everything that we do, by God's grace, should be a success. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'm working on at the moment. I haven't started writing my book yet. I do have like the sort of what would you call it, the straw man look of
Yeah.
what I wanted
Like
to.
the skeleton. The
Exactly, the
skeleton.
skeleton.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Okay.
got the intro, the body, then the conclusion, but there's no body yet. But
Fair enough. That's
yeah,
something.
yeah. But that's definitely something that I hope to undertake in the near future. At the same
Okay.
time, also, I do these videos now, like this short 10-minute videos that I put up on my Instagram page. So my Instagram handle is my scarlet thread, all one word
Mhm.
and two T's. My scarlet thread again. So if people are interested in listening to that, then please do feel free to jump on there. One of the things that I'm also looking to do is have a few people come on in Instagram Live, where we will talk about specific things. All some of it will be related to what's going on currently in the world, but beyond that, because I strongly believe that there will be a post-coronavirus era, right? This isn't going to
Yeah.
last forever.
Yeah.
And so the hope
Yeah.
is to be able to continue that and just to see where, where the Lord leads that. My desire is just to share and to encourage people. And that's really all that I want
Yeah.
to do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's great. We're looking forward to the book. And you know me, I'm gonna keep,
Oh, yeah.
reminding
Thanks.
you.
My
You said, yeah,
accountability partner.
exactly. Exactly. Okay, so final question for you. At the end of part one of this episode, I challenge listeners to just write down three things that they've always wanted to do that for any, whatever reason they haven't been able to, and to take one step to get them closer to achieving whatever that thing or dream or whatever was. Now, obviously, you've already shared a couple of things, like with the book and also with the social enterprise project. Can you tell us is there anything else? I mean, there doesn't have to be, but what is one step that you would take,
Yeah.
I guess, for example, maybe this year, just to take you a bit closer to making that a reality?
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that I've always wanted to do was to go and volunteer in South America. So to
Oh,
just,
wow.
yeah, to move to one of the Latin American countries and volunteer there with a not-for-profit organization. And yeah, so I had actually looked into earlier this year, possibly going to Colombia. Now it wasn't going to be. It was going to be a vacation and not so much a volunteer trip. But and for me, I think it's still. I mean, just the thought of being in South America. For some reason, I just have a real affinity towards South America. So that's definitely something that I want to do. And I think when this is all over, I'm definitely going to be looking into hopefully making that trip a reality. So
Right.
yes,
Okay.
next time I come on your show, I might be speaking like fluent Spanish.
No, that would be great. That would be great. I mean, yeah, for those that don't know, Chika loves her traveling. So in a way, that's not too much of a surprise to me. Um, but yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've really, really enjoyed having this chat with you on the podcast, and I'm sure people listening are going to really enjoy it as well. And for sure, I'm going to have you on more times in the future. There's lots for us to um, discuss. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and
Real pleasure.
looking forward to looking forward to what God has in store for you in the coming years.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful and I've definitely enjoyed myself. And yeah, I look forward to future podcast sessions. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, that's it. And don't forget to subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode. Share the episode with your friends and family, and rate the podcast as well. It helps people to find the podcast so many more people can listen to it and hopefully be blessed by it as well. And yeah, so we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.